It's time to now explore a great little tool that comes with Microsoft Project and is great for presenting your project to other people because we can use it to filter out some of the tasks, display them in a different way, and summarize them in quite a small space. This little tool is called the timeline. Now, to activate the timeline so that you can start customizing it, we need to go to View on the ribbons and come all the way across to Timeline. One tick in the box opens this little upper section here called the timeline. Now it's just another window within a window, so I can resize by dragging down to give me a little bit more area to work within. Now the timeline is intended as a summary of your project. So I have my tasks here, I have my Gantt chart on the right hand side. Depending on the size of your project, you can find that the Gantt chart can get a little unwieldy or quite large, and sometimes you just want a summary of part of the project perhaps. So what we need to do with the timeline is add those tasks that we would like to see. And there are a number of ways of adding those tasks. Probably the quickest is to come down to the entry screen on the left hand side here, pick a task or even a number of tasks, highlight a few, right click and add to timeline. And then the selected task or tasks will be added to the timeline. You can see that they appear here. They are like the taskbars here in that their size is relative to the size of the task's duration. So if we were to pick quite a long task like remove old units, and let's look at adding that a different way, and we can do that by going into the task information. Double click, there's the option on the general tab, display on timeline. Okay, and then that appears on the timeline. And because it's a much longer task, we can see a lot more of it and a little bit more information. Everything at the moment is also the same color, that blue color that you get for taskbars in the Gantt chart. Don't worry, we're totally able to customize all of that. So we need to be able to add our tasks. We have right click, we have the task information box, we have pick a task or number of tasks, and then on the task ribbon, here's a little option, add to timeline. One click, and those selected tasks then get added to my timeline as well. If I scroll down, we'll pick on some other tasks a little further along the time, and we'll add these a different way. So instead of going from the data entry screen, what we can do is do it from the actual timeline itself. So let's click in. That activates the timeline tools formatting ribbon. So I choose that, and we have here an insert option. Now I want to add some existing tasks. Now you can actually use the timeline to add a new task to your whole project, but I'm going to use it to add existing tasks, which brings up a floating dialog box. So you can see the ticks of the ones I already have, so I can actually remove those if I so wish, or I can choose perhaps all the white goods. So it's like a section on each of the actual white goods tasks. Okay, and they get added. You can see they're all up here. If I double click just here on the timeline, so away from the central area, and then right click, we get the option to insert task, existing tasks, and that brings up the same dialog box. So that's the same access as going to here, existing tasks. So a number of ways of adding tasks to the timeline and removing them is pretty much the backwards route. Now you can't tell when you're looking at a task here whether it's in the timeline or not, so it becomes quite difficult to decide which ones to remove, although you can remove them from down here if you know. So remove all units, for example, I could right click that, and the option there, add to timeline, that is highlighted, I would just choose it again and then it gets removed. But because it's difficult to see which ones are part of the timeline, you could go into the task information as well and remove that tick. Then probably the easiest way of removing tasks is to actually click on the task within the timeline and then just delete on the keyboard. And that will remove the task from the timeline. Or we select the task and from the timeline tools formatting ribbon, remove from timeline, and that will take it away as well. So the timeline area is displayed here. We add tasks in any number of ways, from task information, from the task bar, from inserting existing tasks from the actual timeline tools. Those tasks then remain on this timeline, even if I go back to view and close the timeline, and then go manipulate my project, and then come back again and look at the timeline. The same tasks are in place. If they've moved or they've been extended or they've been shortened, then their relatively blue size here will adjust. But the actual tasks you've chosen will remain on the timeline until you explicitly say, please remove these from the timeline, Microsoft Project. I no longer require them. So this is like a little customized summary where you can decide which tasks to place on there, which tasks not to place on there, giving you your own customized timeline. So that's the introduction to this little timeline tool. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. We can do a lot of customization. We can do a lot of date filtering so we don't see the whole project. We can use it for reduced summaries, and we can even add more than one timeline, which really is quite powerful.